Hey, how you doing? I'm going to do an as quick as I can screencast on how to do task automation using the npm scripts property in the package.json files instead of using the usual JavaScript task automation tools that we've been using like Grunt or Gulp. I want to point out that there are a lot of really, really good articles on this subject, tons, and I'm about to go through them. But the reason I'm doing the screencast is because one thing I learned during my time doing video courses for lynda.com is that there could be a ton of really great blog posts and tutorials on a web development subject, but some people just prefer video and screencast because they comprehend stuff easier. So that's why I'm doing it. I'm basically going to be regurgitating everything I read in these articles and translating into video. Here are the articles. This is by Substack, the creator of Browserify, task automation with npm run. That's the command. Really, really good, succinct, to the point article on this subject. There's an article here by K. Adam White from Boku. Super duper nice guy. He expands on a lot of the points in Substack's article. I'm just going to go back real quick, zoom in. If you want to save this URL for later reference, please do. I'll just do the same thing here. Zoom in, pause it, write down that URL, whatever. And then another article. K. Adam refers to this article by Keith Serkel. Hope I got your name right. How to use npm as a build tool. Zoom in, pause it, copy that URL for later use, whatever. And this article is actually a follow-up to his other article, why we should stop using Grunt and Gulp. Real quick on this subject, the two main reasons that I've been hearing from or seeing in these articles and hearing from other developers, the two main reasons we should use npm instead of Grunt or Gulp are: one, it's easier to set up, and it is. You're really just if there's any command that you can just type into the terminal, you're just configuring that npm scripts property with that command and setting up so you can run it in a certain way. So it's definitely quicker. That's number one. And number two is when you install Grunt or Gulp or any other tool, 9 times out of 10 you're going to have to install that package or part of that package as a global package, and that's not always good. But my opinion is I'm pro npm scripts right now. I think it's really the best way to do things. But it's only good, I think, if, like I said, you can just plug in command line. You can just plug in command line commands into npm scripts. That's like really simple. That's fine. But if you are using something like ESLint or ESHint, where you may have to configure an API, which some packages do, it's probably easier to do that in Grunt and Gulp. My personal opinion moving forward is I will always use npm scripts, and if there's something that's more complicated, I'll use Grunt, because I think Grunt is simpler than Gulp. Grunt runs your tasks synchronously, whereas Gulp runs them asynchronously, and setting all of that up could be a pain. And I know that me saying I prefer Grunt instead of Gulp loses me a seat on the developer cool kids table, and I don't care. All right, so real quick, this is a personal project I've been working on for a while, the JavaScript canon. It's a compilation of JavaScript learning resources that I think are top-notch. So here they are right here, some books, got one website, one class here, and you can click website, just see the websites, click class, just see the class, just click books, click show all types. It shows everything, and I'm using the npm script stuff to build out HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and to get a feel for that, let's look at the package.json file here. Just go over here. Hello, there we go. So this is a scripts property right here. So just go through the commands real quick. So I've got server here. Server allows me to use the node httpster package to basically, I'm building out all of my files in this build directory, and when I run server, I can see this folder. I can get to the files in that folder through a web browser when I access localhost port 3000. Then I've got some Jade tasks here. I'm using Jade to pre-process HTML. That's what Jade's for. I've got Build.js. I'm using Browserify to concatenate and minify a bunch of JavaScript files that I have in this JS build directory right here, and it spits out a scripts.js file in the build.js folder using got this build Sass task using Node Sass, pre-processing CSS with Sass here. Same thing, it just compiles a bunch of CSS files and dumps them in the build folder here. There's a file called style.css. Hey, yeah, I know I said I'm using npm scripts mostly, but I can actually use Grunt, and I'm actually using Grunt here to run this on CSS task, and we'll expand on that in a bit. Concat CSS, I'm using the cat package to concatenate all my CSS. Then I've got the CSS build task here, and this is going to run all the CSS tasks I just talked about, build Sass, unCSS, so on and so forth. The CSS build task is going to do all of that stuff. And then I've got this build task here, and what build's going to do is run all the building for the pre-processed stuff and the JavaScript stuff. So I run build, my Jade my Jade command will run, my CSS build command will run, and my Browserify based Build.js task will run. I hope I said task before. If not, I meant task instead of file, whatever. And I'm watching all those build processes, the Jade one, the JavaScript one, the CSS one. I'm watching them using Remy Sharp's excellent NodeMon package. So basically, if a Jade file changes, those build tasks will run with no problem. Watch is the command that I run when I'm starting work on this. What watch does is it runs that localhost server based command that I talked about in the beginning, and it also starts watching stuff. And not only does it start watching stuff in terms of the Jade, CSS, and JavaScript, but it actually also runs those tasks at the end, towards the end. It's really cool. And I'm not going to talk about these last two tasks here, but there's a book minify. I'm using the image min package to minify a bunch of images related to my site, all those books you saw in the beginning. And then I've got this copy bootstrap task here. It's using the NCP package. So basically, I'm updating Bootstrap through NPM. And if I update Bootstrap, I take the updated core Bootstrap CSS file and I dump it into this CSS build folder here, because Bootstrap is part of my CSS build. It's one of the files. So I copy it over, and then when the time comes to do the actual CSS build task, Bootstrap will be part of it. So that's enough going through the files. Let's do some stuff. I think I turned off the server before I start recording. Yes, I did. So yeah, I'm coming in, I'm starting work. So like I said, I'm running that npm watch command. So I would type in npm run watch, and it's doing a bunch of stuff. I'll go through all of it when it's done. I think there's one more. Yep, there it is on CSS. All right, so we're done. So go straight to the top. So I ran npm run watch, and right away it started watching. Well, just ran that command, and the first thing the command did was it ran the server, then it started watching the CSS, then it started watching the Jade, then it started watching the CSS, then at the bottom there we've got starting HTTP stir. It's running the localhost server on port 3000, and then NodeMon, which is watching everything, starts sending some messages, and then here in yellow we've got it here saying, hey, run build Jade, and then it just, like I said, it runs the Jade task, then it runs the CSS build task, then it runs the Build.js task, and then so yeah, all the various related subtasks like Browserify and build Sass and concatenate and all that stuff. All that stuff starts getting run like crazy, and as you can see, Jade's finished, so it builds out my core index.html file, and then the CSS stuff is running here, CSS build, blah, blah, blah. Hey, and then Grunt kicks in and runs that on CSS task. Very good. So let me bring Sublime back to the party, and I'll just make it a little smaller so we can see the task running in that terminal window. And I'm going to change some stuff. So I've got this copy here. I'm going to change that inside of a Jade file. So that is in header, not JS. So I'm going to get rid of the and I'm going to make everything lowercase instead of proper case and camel case. Bring back the terminal so we can see it run behind Sublime and save it. Yep, Jade's running, doing its thing. So then if I go back here and refresh, perfect. So those changes happened. Then I'll make a CSS change real quick, and I will do that here. So sticking with this, what's the class name? I forget. It is H1 text, so I'm going to change that class. Well, I'm going to change that copy through this new class I'm creating in the desktop view. So H1, come on, H1 class. I'm going to give it the color of red. I'm going to bump up, sorry, I'm going to try and bump up its font size, actually, I'm sorry. Cannot type, it's late at night. A little Dr. Seuss there. Bumped up to 42 pixels. Bring back the terminal so we can see it run in the background. So save this. Yep. And all the CSS stuff is running, like build Sass and node Sass and uncss. Very cool. Save that. Refresh. Yep. Change. It's all red now and slightly bigger size. Let's change some JavaScript here. So these buttons here, just these three, ignore that show types, just these three, book, website, and class. These are values that are being pulled from a JSON API that's running off of Heroku. These values, book, website, and class, they're actually lowercase in the API, but this JavaScript here is making it uppercase. I'm going to stop that uppercase stuff and just have it, let me bring terminal back. So I'm just going to remove that uppercase command that I just did, and if I save this, then when it loads, book, website, and class, those buttons, they should be lowercase. So let me save that, and we see the JavaScript stuff. Browserify is running in the background, and refresh. Yep, perfect. It's lowercase. The last thing I want to show you is Grunt and talk about that on CSS. So on CSS, oops, sorry. Man, npm on CSS. Here we go. All right, so this is a package here. Basically what it does is you take a CSS file and all its selectors and you compare it to your HTML file. If uncss sees selectors that are in the CSS but not in the HTML, it'll remove it. Remove those unused selectors from the CSS file, which makes your file smaller and your site more efficient overall. I should point out there is a way, I'm basically running this through Grunt. There probably is a way where I can get it to run through npm run the way I wanted to. I just haven't gotten to it. But yeah, it really has to do with this configuration file here. I just haven't got it perfect. But you know, I'll get it eventually. Or soon enough. But so yeah, I'm using Grunt here. It's good. I mean, I can show you how I'm using Grunt with npm script. It's kind of cool. So I've only got one task in this Grunt file. It's this uncss task. It's doing the comparing of unused selectors and in the HTML and comparing that with the CSS file you have. And if the selectors aren't used, they'll be removed. But there are some selectors that are not on the HTML but are being used anyway. They're just being bought in later through JavaScript. And the fact that the selectors aren't there when uncss runs, and uncss, excuse me, is not going to care whether or not they're coming in later with JavaScript. They're just going to remove them unless I put them in this ignore array. So that's what I have here. These are selectors which are not on my HTML page, but will be when the page is at a certain state, and I just want to make sure that they're preserved in my CSS file. Now, the cool thing about all of this is I'm running Grunt using this npm scripts directive right here. So let me just scroll down here. So yeah, I mean, I've got in my dev dependencies my Grunt package and my Grunt CLI package, and they're running locally. They're not global installs, and that's really good. That's really going to keep my machine clean. I'll never have to worry about if one project on my machine needs an older copy of Grunt or not. It's really, really cool. And just to prove it, let me just open up a new tab, and I'll show you that. I'll just try to run Grunt from my home directory here. Just make it neater. And it says Grunt not found. But if I were to go to this JavaScript canon repo here, and then I run my command, my grunt command, which is npm run grunt. See, it's running no problem. There's no global grunt install, but it's running anyway. It's running locally. This is the way I think to do stuff. And I also want to point out that I've been going back and forth to my package.json to look at like all my scripts or what my scripts are doing. But the cool thing is, if I just do npm run in the terminal, I will get a list of what hello, there we go. I just get a list of what scripts are running anyway. I mean, it's not giving me like a super duper description of what's happening, but you know, I can see enough to understand what's going on. So that's really it. You can use npm scripts. I like it, I suggest it, but you know, the cool thing about the development environment nowadays is we have options. We can not use npm scripts and use Grunt or Gulp or vice versa in any combination. So it's a really, really good time to be a developer. So I just hope you use npm run or think of npm run as an option. So thanks. Got any questions, hit me up on Twitter, leave comments on this video's YouTube page, or hit me up on my blog. That's it. Have a good one. Bye-bye.